Hi, welcome to Fish on Fridays. I'm Al McCauley, and boy, today's episode, I'm going to try to do something that might be difficult. I'm going to tackle probably the most beloved teachings of Jesus in all of the New Testament, and I'm talking about the Beatitudes. I would suggest that each of the 8 Beatitudes could have its own episode of Fish on Fridays. So I'm gonna kind of go through this and give you a little background first, but then look at each one of the 8 Beatitudes individually. And I'm gonna have to go off screen a little bit to do some reading, just because I want to make sure I'm capturing this all. But let's back up a little bit. The Beatitudes are part of what we call, probably the culmination of what we call the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5 to 7. So 3 full chapters are the Sermon on the Mount. If you were to read those 3 chapters, it'd probably take the average person about 15 minutes to get through it, because there's a lot there. And this is right after, just to put it in context of Jesus' life, this is after his baptism and after he's called his disciples. He goes to this place called Mount Aramis, and that's hence the Sermon on the Mount, and it overlooks the Sea of Galilee in Capernaum. And it's a place of natural acoustics. So obviously they didn't have, microphones and amplifiers and PA systems back in Jesus' day. And so he had to go to a place that would have this natural acoustics so people could hear. And he's talking to a lot of people. And again, within the context of the Sermon on the Mount, he gives us these 8 Beatitudes. Now, let's again look at some context here. In the Old Testament, we know the story in Exodus how Moses goes to Mount Sinai and he gets the 10 Commandments. The mountains in the ancient world, not just in Judeo-Christian history, but in the ancient world, mountains is where the divine reside, right? The Greeks had Mount Olympus, and everything. Think about the higher you get in elevation, the closer you are to the divine, to God. And so when Moses goes to Mount Sinai, he hobnobs with God and he gets the 10 Commandments. Jesus is going on top of this mountain isn't just for him to have acoustics. It's to kind of complete or fulfill what Moses started in the Old Testament. So in the 10 Commandments, we're told, thou shalt not. In the Beatitudes, Jesus reverses it and says, blessed are you when. So, and that's what Beatitude means. It means happy. It means blessing. So instead of the thou shalt not, we're getting the blessed are you when. We're getting a more positive, if you will, spin on how to behave. And that's really what the Beatitudes are. They're a blueprint for how we should act as Christians, how we should behave. It's one thing to have faith. It's another thing to put it into action. And so Jesus gives us this wonderful, wonderful blueprint of how to live our lives. And so again, I want to go through these and I want to look at them briefly just to give you my personal 2 cents on them. I'm going to very briefly run through these, but again, I want to look at this because I want to make sure I get it right. And it's important to, it's interesting when we think about this. Every one of these starts with blessed are you. And so we should think of them as blessings, that we are blessed by God when we do these things. That's important to understand. The first one, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And I would ask, being poor in spirit, how detached are we from our, material world? How detached are we, or how attached are we? To be poor in spirit means I'm recognizing that I need God. I don't need my happiness or my meaning from things, or especially if they're evil things or bad things. But to be poor in spirit means I am dependent on God. That's really where grace flows from. That's where my blessing flows from. Be blessed are you when you are poor in spirit. That's why it always seems to me that poor people, they have a natural happiness to them because they're not bogged down by all the worries about how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay off my car? How am I going to, all the things that I've got to have this, I got to have that, keep up with the Joneses kind of thing. So first Beatitude, a good one to start. Here's the second. Blessed are Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. I wonder how detached we are from things like power and pleasure. How many of those not material things, but ways of thinking, what I try to seek. I want to get the last word in. I want to be the person in charge. To be detached from that. Because, when you mourn, you realize you're not in control. If you've ever been to a funeral, you know this to be true, that you're not as in control as you'd like to think you are. And so that Beatitude reminds us of this. Here's the next one. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the land. And I think, again, power, worldly power. Meekness is not weakness. That's the old saying. Humility takes great strength. And this is what it's calling us to be people of humility, not to be seeking, affirmation from the world, but to do God's will. And that's really important. Here's the next blessing. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. And I think about who are those people in my life that I know that work for the best for everybody. You know, a charism, a spiritual gift is not for ourselves. It's for the building up of the community. And I wonder how we do that. How can I work for what's best for all? And I think that's a little bit at the heart of why we have these things called Catholic social teachings, you know, to try to think about the all. The next one, blessed are the merciful, they shall be shown mercy. And I think mercy is active compassion. It's one thing to say I feel bad for somebody, but it's active. And the best example I could think of in my lifetime is, if you are old enough to remember, in the early, I think it was 1981, when Pope John Paul II there was an assassination attempt on his life, and he nearly died. He was shot in St. Peter's Square, and he was rushed to the hospital, and of course he didn't die. He lived a long life after that. But one of the first things he did when he became ambulatory and could leave the hospital is he went to the cell where the person who shot him was kept, was arrested, obviously, and he met with him and he forgave him. And I think, boy, that takes a lot. That's active compassion right there. That mercy that he showed to his attacker, to his would-be killer. What a model for us. What a way to live out that blessing, that beatitude. Here's the next. Blessed are the clean in heart, for they shall see God. You know, I often wonder when I judge people, when I think of people, I wonder, do I look at them the way I do or the way God would? You know, it's important that we recognize that we're all children of God. We're made in God's likeness and image. We all deserve dignity. And so therefore, we need to make sure that we are, that we're loving people as God would. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying you have to like them, but you have to love them. You have to give them that dignity that they're born with, that they're created with. That's, again, not easy, but something we're called to do, to be truly blessed. Here's the next one. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons and daughters of God. You know, and this goes back to dignity, but the word that's really key in this beatitude to me is peacemaker. It doesn't say peaceful. Blessed are the peaceful. Because I think it's easy to be peaceful, but it's not as easy to be the peacemaker. Again, this is a very active thing. This is not something I could just sit back and say, well, I believe in this, so that's enough. We have to be peacemakers. And that starts in our homes. That starts in our workplaces. That starts in our schools. That starts in our little communities. And then it goes out from there. You know, that's Mother Teresa, and I'm paraphrasing this. Mother Teresa said very famously, if you want peace in the world, go home and love your family, because she knew it started there. And that's a really important blessing. If you do that, and that's why it's in a beatitude. Here's the next one. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven will be theirs. Again, I would try to advise, I think this is telling us to detach from worldly honor, that what we really seek is God, not the praise of this world. To detach ourselves as often as possible from those things that are distracting us from being truly blessed by God, and by in turn being a blessing to others. And so that would be, you know, what I would ask you to think about with this. When we consider the totality of the Beatitudes, I would ask, how am I a blessing? You know, am I a blessing? We all are. But how is it? To think about that. How am I a blessing, and how is that meant to go out from me, to be a blessing to others? I think about how important it is to let the Beatitudes resonate with my life. And I might think, which one is the one that I like the most, and which one is the greatest struggle for me? Something to take to prayer, perhaps. But again, great example of how to live as a Christian, a blueprint for Christianity in the Beatitudes. What a gift we have from Jesus in this remarkable passage from, again, Matthew 5-7. That really could take to prayer and think about, and hopefully it'll change us and we'll become active in our prayer, in our life, and to know that we are truly blessed and a blessing. That was a lot. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful. If you'd like to share this content, feel free to do so. I hope you will continue to tune in every Friday for Fish on Fridays. If you'd like to subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook, we'd appreciate that. As always, again, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, be good to each other, and God bless.